The diner's neon sign flickered, casting a red glow over Ethan's clenched fists. He was 19, and the world felt like it was collapsing under the weight of his grief. His mother's laugh, once the heartbeat of their small Virginia town, had been silenced by cancer 6 months ago, and now her absence was a wound that refused to heal. Ethan stared at the chipped formica table, the smell of fried onions and coffee grounding him as his heart raced. Across from him sat Malik, his best friend, his anchor, his everything, though Ethan hadn't yet found the courage to say that last part out loud. Malik's warm brown eyes held a quiet strength, but tonight, they were clouded with worry. "You don't have to go back there," Malik said softly, his voice cutting through the diner's hum. "Not after what he did." He was Roger, Ethan's stepfather, a man whose love for Ethan's mother had never extended to Ethan himself. After her death, Roger's disdain had hardened into something crueler. When Ethan came out as gay at 17, Roger's response was a cold, "You're no son of mine." Now, living under Roger's roof felt like walking through a minefield. Every word, every glance, was a reminder that Ethan was unwanted. "I don't have a choice," Ethan muttered, pushing a fry around his plate. "It's her house. Her memory. If I leave, it's like I'm letting him erase her too." His voice cracked, and he hated how small it made him feel. Malik reached across the table, his hand brushing Ethan's. The touch was electric, a lifeline in the storm. "You're not alone," Malik said, his voice steady but fierce. "You've got me. Always." Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to believe it, but fear clung to him like damp clothes. Malik was everything: bold, kind, unapologetically himself, with a laugh that could light up the darkest room. But Ethan was terrified of what it meant to want him, to love him, in a town that whispered judgment and a house that screamed it. The diner door swung open, and Ethan flinched as Roger's broad silhouette filled the frame. His stepfather's eyes locked onto him, then slid to Malik's hand still resting on Ethan's. "Time to go, boy," Roger barked, his voice dripping with contempt. Ethan's stomach churned, but he stood, avoiding Malik's gaze. As they left, Malik slipped a small object into Ethan's pocket, a cheap voice recorder, barely the size of a keychain. "Just in case," Malik whispered. That night, Ethan lay awake in his childhood bedroom, the recorder hidden under his pillow. Roger's footsteps echoed down the hall, each one a reminder of the man's growing hostility. Ethan's mother had been the glue holding their fractured family together. Without her, Roger's resentment had no filter. Ethan clutched the recorder, its cold metal grounding him. He didn't know why Malik had given it to him, but it felt like a shield. The next morning, Roger's voice boomed through the house. "Pack your things. You're out by the end of the week." Ethan froze, his heart pounding. "You think you can live here, flaunting that sin? Your mother would be ashamed." The words cut deeper than any blade, slicing through Ethan's resolve. He wanted to scream that his mother had loved him, had known who he was, and never wavered. But Roger's glare silenced him. Instead, Ethan slipped the recorder into his pocket and pressed record. He didn't know why, but Malik's whisper, "just in case," echoed in his mind. For the rest of the day, he kept it running, capturing Roger's rants, his threats, his venom. By nightfall, Ethan's hands shook as he listened to the recordings. Every word was a confirmation of Roger's hatred, but also a spark of something else: defiance. Malik met him at the diner again that evening, his face etched with concern. "Did you use it?" he asked. Ethan nodded, passing the recorder over. As Malik listened, his jaw tightened. "This is proof, Ethan. Proof he's trying to erase you. You don't have to let him win." Ethan's throat burned. What am I supposed to do? He's got everything: her house, her things. He's taken it all. Malik leaned closer, his voice low and fierce. He hasn't taken you. And he hasn't taken us. The word "us" hung in the air, heavy with promise. Ethan's heart raced, not from fear this time, but from something warmer, something dangerous. That night, Ethan made a decision. He wouldn't let Roger erase him. Not his love, not his truth, not his mother's memory. The recorder was his weapon, but Malik was his courage. As he drifted to sleep, the weight of his grief felt lighter, replaced by a flicker of hope. He didn't know how, but he would fight back. For himself. For Malik. For the love his mother had taught him to believe in. Ethan woke to the sound of Roger's slamming cabinets downstairs. Each crash was a reminder of the deadline, 3 days until he was supposed to be gone. He gripped the recorder, its weight a small rebellion against the chaos. He hadn't told Malik everything: how Roger had started locking away his mother's belongings. Her photos, her journals, as if erasing her could erase Ethan too. But the recorder had captured it all: Roger's voice, sharp and venomous, calling Ethan a mistake, a disgrace. At school, Ethan felt like a ghost. The small community college in town was a mix of familiar faces and whispered rumors. He and Malik shared a few classes, and today, Malik was waiting outside the lecture hall, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his smile a beacon in the gray morning. "You okay?" Malik asked, falling into step beside him. "No," Ethan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm trying." Malik's hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that sent warmth through Ethan's veins. They walked to the campus coffee shop, a cramped space filled with the hum of students and the scent of burnt espresso. Over steaming mugs, Ethan spilled everything: the threats, the locked boxes, the way Roger's hatred seemed to grow with every passing day. Malik listened, his eyes never leaving Ethan's. When Ethan finished, Malik leaned forward, his voice steady. "We're going to fight this. Together." He pulled out his laptop and played the recordings, his expression darkening with each word. "This isn't just about you staying in that house, Ethan. It's about proving he can't control you." Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to believe Malik, but doubt gnawed at him. What if it's not enough? What if he wins? Malik's hand found his under the table, firm and unwavering. "He won't. Because you're stronger than he thinks. And I'm not going anywhere." That afternoon, they skipped their last class and drove to the outskirts of town, where Malik's older sister, Aisha, lived. Aisha was a paralegal, sharp and fearless, with a knack for cutting through bullshit. Her small apartment was cluttered with law books and framed photos of her and Malik as kids. When they played the recordings for her, Aisha's eyes narrowed. "This is coercion. Emotional abuse. We can use this." She explained that Roger, as Ethan's stepfather, had no legal right to evict him without due process, especially since the house was still in Ethan's mother's name. "Your mom's will," Aisha said, tapping her pen against a notepad. "Did she leave anything to you?" Ethan hesitated. He hadn't seen the will since his mother's death. Roger had handled everything, claiming it was taken care of. Malik squeezed his hand. "We'll find it. If there's a will, it's your leverage." Aisha nodded, already pulling up legal resources on her laptop. "Start digging, Ethan. Check her things, her files. If Roger's hiding something, we'll expose it." That night, Ethan crept into the attic while Roger was out. The space was a maze of boxes, each one a piece of his mother's life. He found her old journals, her handwriting a painful reminder of her warmth. Tucked inside one was a sealed envelope labeled Ethan. His hands trembled as he opened Ida's letter, written in her final days, telling him she loved him, that she was proud of who he was, no matter what anyone said. At the bottom, she mentioned a will, stored in a safe deposit box at the local bank. Ethan's heart raced. This was proof that his mother hadn't abandoned him. He slipped the letter into his pocket and kept searching, the recorder still running. When he heard Roger's truck pull into the driveway, he froze. Heavy footsteps climbed the stairs, and Ethan barely had time to hide before Roger appeared, his face twisted with suspicion. "What the hell are you doing up here?" he growled. Ethan stammered, but Roger didn't wait for an answer. He grabbed Ethan's arm, dragging him downstairs. "You think you can snoop around? You're done here." The recorder caught every word, every threat, as Ethan's fear battled his growing resolve. He wouldn't let Roger win. Not now. Not when he had Malik, Aisha, and his mother's words to hold on to. The next morning, Ethan's arm still ached from Roger's grip, but the letter in his pocket burned brighter than the bruise. He met Malik at the diner, the familiar neon glow a small comfort. Malik's eyes widened when Ethan showed him the letter. "She knew," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "She knew who I was, and she loved me anyway." Malik's hand found his, their fingers intertwining under the table. "She's still with you, Ethan. And we're going to make sure her wishes are honored." The word "we" was a lifeline, pulling Ethan from the edge of despair. He wasn't alone. Not anymore. They drove to Aisha's apartment, where she was already on the phone with a lawyer friend. The letter mentioned a safe deposit box, but accessing it would require Ethan's birth certificate and documents Roger kept locked in his study. Aisha's plan was clear: get the documents, get to the bank, and retrieve the will. But breaking into Roger's study was a risk, one that made Ethan's stomach churn. That night, Ethan waited until Roger was asleep, the house silent except for the creak of old floorboards. The study door was locked, but Ethan had watched his mother pick locks as a teenager, a skill she'd taught him for emergencies. His hands shook as he worked a paperclip into the lock, the recorder tucked in his pocket, still running. The door clicked open, and Ethan slipped inside. The study was a shrine to Roger's control files neatly labeled, his mother's belongings shoved into a corner. Ethan found the safe under the desk, its combination a mystery. He tried his mother's birthday, then his own. Nothing. Desperation clawed at him until he noticed a sticky note on Roger's monitor, December 15th, 2009. The date of his mother's death. His stomach twisted, but the safe clicked open. Inside were Ethan's documents and a copy of the will. He scanned it, his heart pounding. His mother had left the house to him, with a trust to cover his education. Roger had lied, claiming it all for himself. Ethan's hands shook as he photographed the will with his phone, the recorder capturing his ragged breaths. But then, headlights flashed through the window. Roger was home early. Ethan shoved the documents back, barely locking the safe before diving under the desk. Roger's footsteps thundered closer, his voice slurring with alcohol. "I know you're in here, boy." Ethan held his breath, the recorder still running, capturing Roger's muttered threats about fixing this for good. When Roger finally left, Ethan slipped out, his heart racing. He met Malik at the diner at dawn, showing him the photos. Malik's jaw tightened. "This is it, Ethan. He can't touch you now." Aisha agreed, already drafting a legal notice to challenge Roger's control. But Ethan's relief was tempered by fear. Roger wasn't just a bully who was dangerous. That afternoon, Malik took Ethan to a local LGBT community center, a small building filled with warm lights and welcoming faces. There, Ethan met Jamie, a trans woman who ran the center and had a knack for making everyone feel seen. Jamie listened to Ethan's story, her eyes soft but fierce. "You're not just fighting for a house," she said. "You're fighting for your right to exist. We've got your back." Emboldened, Ethan and Malik planned their next move: confront Roger with the will and the recordings. But as they left the center, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number: "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Ethan's blood ran cold. Malik grabbed his hand, his voice steady. "We're not backing down. Not now. Not ever." That night, Ethan lay awake, the recorder under his pillow, its tiny light a reminder of his power. He thought of Malik's hand in his, the warmth of his mother's letter, the strength of Jamie's words. For the first time, he felt like he could fight not just for the house, but for himself. For the love he was finally ready to admit he felt. The text haunted Ethan all morning: "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." He didn't recognize the number, but the venom felt like Roger's. At the diner, Malik's face was a storm of worry and resolve. "We need to move fast," he said, his hand gripping Ethan's. "If he's threatening you, he knows you're onto him." Aisha had already contacted her lawyer friend, who confirmed the will was legally binding. Ethan's mother had ensured he'd inherit the house and a trust fund, but Roger had buried it all under lies. The recordings, Aisha said, could prove emotional abuse, enough to challenge Roger's authority and maybe even press charges. But confronting him was a gamble one Ethan wasn't sure he was ready for. That afternoon, they went to the bank. Ethan's hands shook as he presented his ID and the letter. The clerk, an older woman with kind eyes, led them to the safe deposit box. Inside was the original will, a few pieces of his mother's jewelry, and another letter. Ethan's throat tightened as he read her words: "You are my heart, Ethan. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are." He clutched the letter, tears blurring his vision. Malik's arm around his shoulders was the only thing keeping him grounded. Back at Aisha's apartment, they planned the confrontation. Aisha's lawyer friend, Clara, would serve Roger with a legal notice, demanding he vacate the house. The recordings would be their leverage, proof of his abuse and coercion. But Ethan's fear lingered. Roger wasn't just cruel, he was unpredictable, and that text had left a chill in Ethan's bones. That night, Ethan returned home, the will and letter hidden in his backpack. Roger was waiting, his eyes bloodshot, a bottle of whiskey on the table. "You think you're clever, sneaking around," he slurred. Ethan's heart pounded, but he kept the recorder running. "I know my rights," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Mom left the house to me." Roger's laugh was cold, cutting. "You think a piece of paper changes anything? You're nothing." He lunged, grabbing Ethan's backpack. Ethan fought back, shoving Roger away, but not before Roger tore the bag open, the letter fluttering to the floor. Roger's eyes narrowed as he read it, his face twisting with rage. "She was weak, just like you." Ethan's vision blurred with tears, but he stood his ground. "She loved me. That's more than you can say." Roger's fist clenched, but he didn't strike. Instead, he stormed out, slamming the door. Ethan sank to the floor, clutching the letter, the recorder still capturing his ragged sobs. The next day, Malik and Aisha met him at the community center. Jamie had rallied a small group of supporters, including a local journalist, Sarah, who was interested in Ethan's story. Sarah listened to the recordings, her expression grim. "This could be bigger than just your case," she said. "It's about standing up to hate." Ethan hesitated, unsure about going public, but Malik's steady gaze gave him courage. "You're not just fighting for you," Malik said. "You're fighting for everyone who's been told they don't belong." They spent the day preparing, Clara drafting the legal notice while Sarah worked on an article. Ethan felt the weight of it all: the house, his mother's memory, the love he felt for Malik but hadn't yet spoken. That evening, as they sat in Malik's car outside the diner, Ethan took a deep breath. "I'm scared," he admitted. "But I'm in love with you." Malik's eyes softened, a smile breaking through. "I've been waiting for you to say that." He leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that felt like coming home. For a moment, the world was just them, the neon glow of the diner fading into the background. But the moment was shattered by another text. "You'll pay for this." Ethan's heart sank. He showed Malik, who gripped his hand. "We're ready for him," Malik said. "Together." Ethan nodded, the recorder in his pocket a reminder of his power, and Malik's love a reminder of his worth. The legal notice was served the next morning. Clara handed it to Roger at the house, her calm professionalism a stark contrast to his barely contained rage. Ethan stood behind her, Malik at his side, the recorder still running. Roger's eyes burned as he read the document, his hands crumpling the edges. "You think you can take this from me?" He spat. "This is my house." "It's mine," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "Mom wanted it that way." Roger's laugh was bitter, but he didn't argue. Clara's presence, and the weight of the will, held him in check for now. Back at the diner, Ethan felt the tension ease, if only slightly. Malik's hand found his under the table, a silent promise. Aisha and Sarah joined them, strategizing the next steps. Sarah's article was set to run in the local paper, exposing Roger's abuse and framing Ethan's fight as a stand against bigotry. "This could change things," Sarah said. "Not just for you, but for others in this town." Ethan wasn't sure he was ready to be a symbol, but Malik's quiet strength and Aisha's fierce determination gave him courage. Jamie, from the community center, stopped by with a stack of flyers for a rally in support of Ethan. "You're not alone," she said, her voice warm. "This town's got more heart than Roger thinks." But the threats didn't stop. Another text came that night. "You're making a mistake." Ethan showed it to Malik, who insisted they go to the police. The officer, a gruff man named Torres, listened to the recordings and took the text seriously. "This is harassment," he said. "We'll keep an eye on Roger." But Ethan knew Roger wouldn't back down easily. The next day, Ethan and Malik went through his mother's journals, searching for more clues. They found a photo tucked inside Oni picture of Ethan and his mother at a pride parade 2 years ago, her arm around him, both of them smiling. Ethan's throat tightened. "She knew," he whispered. "She always knew." Malik pulled him close, their foreheads touching. "She's still with you. And I'm here too." Ethan's heart swelled, the weight of his grief mingling with the warmth of Malik's love. They kissed again, slower this time, the world falling away until it was just them. But the peace was short-lived. That night, Ethan woke to the sound of glass shattering. He bolted upright, heart pounding, and grabbed the recorder. Downstairs, Roger was trashing the living room, his voice slurring with rage. "You think you can humiliate me?" he shouted. Ethan stayed hidden, the recorder capturing every word, every crash. When Roger finally passed out, Ethan crept downstairs, stepping over broken picture frames, his mother's face smiling through the shards. He called Malik, who arrived with Aisha and Torres. The officer took Roger into custody for vandalism and harassment. the recordings providing undeniable evidence. Ethan's hands shook as he watched Roger being led away, but Malik's arm around him was a steady anchor. The next morning, Sarah's article hit the stands. It was raw, powerful, and unflinching, detailing Ethan's story and Roger's abuse. The town buzzed with reactions, some supportive, others cruel, but the community center was flooded with messages of solidarity. Jamie organized the rally, and Ethan agreed to speak, his nerves tempered by Malik's unwavering presence. As they prepared, Ethan found another letter in his mother's journal, this one addressed to both him and Roger. It was a plea for peace, for Roger to accept Ethan as her son, no matter who he loved. Ethan's tears fell as he read it, but the words gave him strength. He would honor her by fighting, not just for the house, but for the right to love and be loved. The rally was set for Saturday, outside the community center, under a sky heavy with clouds. Ethan stood backstage, his palms sweaty, the recorder in his pocket like a talisman. Malik was beside him, his hand a quiet reassurance. The crowd was larger than Ethan expected, hundreds of faces, some familiar, some strangers, all gathered to support him. Jamie's voice boomed through the microphone, introducing Ethan as a symbol of resilience, a young man fighting for his truth. When Ethan took the stage, his voice trembled at first. "My mom loved me," he began, holding up her letter. "She loved me for who I am. And no one, not my stepfather. Not this town, can take that away." The crowd cheered, and Ethan's fear melted into something fiercer. He spoke of his mother's warmth, Roger's cruelty, and the love he'd found with Malik. When he finished, Malik pulled him into a hug, the crowd's applause a roar in their ears. But Roger wasn't done. Released on bail, he showed up at the rally's edge, his face twisted with rage. Torres and his team kept him at bay, but his presence was a dark cloud. Ethan's heart raced, but Malik's hand in his grounded him. "He can't touch you now," Malik whispered. "You're stronger than him." Sarah's article had gone viral, picked up by national outlets. Messages of support poured in, along with donations to the community center. Aisha and Clara worked tirelessly, filing a lawsuit to enforce the will and seek damages for Roger's abuse. The recordings were key, painting a clear picture of his hostility. Ethan felt a shift not just in his fight, but in himself. He was no longer the scared kid hiding in his room. He was someone who could stand tall. That night, Ethan and Malik sat on the hood of Malik's car, watching the stars. "I couldn't have done this without you," Ethan said, his voice soft. Malik smiled, his eyes warm. "You did this, Ethan. I just held your hand." They kissed, the world quiet except for the hum of crickets and the beat of their hearts. But the threats escalated. A brick crashed through Ethan's window that night, a note tied to it, "Leave or else." Ethan's fear returned, but so did his resolve. He showed the note to Torres, who increased patrols around the house. Aisha moved Ethan to her apartment for safety, and Malik stayed by his side, refusing to let him face the danger alone. The next day, Clara uncovered more. Roger had been siphoning money from the trust fund, forging documents to claim it as his own. The evidence was damning, and the police issued a warrant for his arrest. But Roger was gone, his truck missing, the house eerily silent. Ethan's relief was tempered by unease. Roger wasn't the type to give up. At the community center, Jamie and Sarah organized a vigil for Ethan's mother, a way to honor her love and legacy. Ethan lit a candle, his voice steady as he read her letter aloud. The crowd was silent, tears shining in their eyes. Malik stood beside him, his presence a quiet strength. For the first time, Ethan felt like he belonged not just in the house, but in the world. As the vigil ended, Ethan's phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unknown number. His heart sank as he played it, Roger's voice, low and menacing. This isn't over. Ethan's hands shook, but Malik's arms around him were a reminder that he wasn't alone. The recorder, still in his pocket, had captured everything. It was his shield, his proof, his power. Roger's disappearance cast a shadow over Ethan's victory. The house was his now, the court ruling in his favor based on the will and the recordings. Clara's lawsuit had exposed Roger's fraud, and the trust fund was restored, ensuring Ethan's future. But the empty house felt hollow, its silence a reminder of his mother's absence and Roger's lingering threat. Ethan moved back in, with Malik and Aisha helping him clean up the damage Roger had left behind. They found more of his mother's things: photos, letters, a quilt she'd made when Ethan was a baby. Each discovery was a balm, stitching together the pieces of his heart. Malik was there every step, his laughter filling the house, his love a light in the dark. One evening, as they sorted through boxes, Ethan found a tape labeled "For Ethan." It was a video his mother had recorded during her final weeks. Her face, pale but warm, filled the screen. "I know things might get hard," she said, her voice steady. "But you are enough, Ethan. You are enough." She spoke of her love for him, her pride in his courage, and her hope that he'd find someone who saw him for who he was. Ethan's tears fell, but they were cleansing, not heavy. Malik held him, whispering, "She's right. You are enough." The community center became Ethan's second home. He volunteered, helping others like him find their voice. Jamie and Sarah became mentors, their support unwavering. The town was changing, slowly, its heart opening to stories like Ethan's. The rally and vigil had sparked conversations, and while not everyone was kind, the tide was turning. One night, Ethan and Malik sat in the diner, the neon glow a familiar comfort. Ethan took Malik's hand, no longer afraid of who might see. "I love you," he said, the words no longer a secret. Malik's smile was radiant. "I love you too." They kissed, the world fading away, their love a quiet rebellion against the hate they'd faced. Then, a breakthrough. Torres called. Roger had been found, hiding in a nearby town. The recordings, combined with the threats and fraud, led to his arrest. He faced charges for harassment, theft, and forgery. Ethan didn't attend the trial, didn't need to. The recordings had shattered Roger's silence, his power, his lies. Ethan was free. The house became a sanctuary, filled with new memories. Ethan and Malik painted the walls, hung photos, and planted a garden where his mother's roses had once grown. Aisha moved closer, her apartment a short drive away, her support a constant. The community center hosted a celebration for Ethan's victory, with music, laughter, and stories of resilience. As winter turned to spring, Ethan stood in the garden, Malik's arm around him. The roses were blooming, a reminder of his mother's love. He thought of the recorder, now tucked away in a drawer, its work done. It had given him a voice when he felt voiceless, a way to fight when he felt powerless. But more than that, it had led him to this memento Malik, to love, to himself. Ethan looked at Malik, his heart full. "We did it," he said. Malik smiled, pulling him close. "Yeah, we did." The neon glow of the diner flickered in the distance, a beacon of the journey they'd taken together. Ethan knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Malik by his side and his mother's love in his heart, he was ready for anything.